Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those within the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome to Insights. I'm Sherry Stewart. Today we are talking about our greenhouse industry and the impact of COVID-19 on this important sector in our economy. The greenhouse industry employs more than 9,000 workers across our state and contributes more than $700 million to Michigan's economy. We'll be talking with Adam Wilson of Wilson's Garden Center in Petoskey, and later in the broadcast we'll be speaking locally with Adam Pohl, President and CEO of the Alpena Chamber of Commerce. Joining me today is Adam Wilson with Wilson Garden Center in Petoskey. And Adam, I want to thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Sherry. It's a great pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, we have a lot to talk about. First and foremost, of course, is how this pandemic has affected your industry. I understand that you are a fifth generation member of the Wilson Garden Center. So tell me all about that.
So, I am generation number 5 to have worked in the business. We started in 1921 here in Petoskey. And that gives us kind of an interesting insight into all of what's happening today. Our greenhouse was operating during the Great Depression when, we had the great economic trouble then. And we grew tomatoes in the greenhouse to get the coal ration to keep the plants going so we could sell to our friends and neighbors. And again, during World War II, same thing. We grew tomatoes in the greenhouse so that we could keep plants going for our friends and neighbors. The building I'm sitting in right now was my great-grandparents' home. We use it as our office now. So as a kid, I can remember having, holiday meals here and playing in the pond in the backyard and those kinds of things. So.
Wow, that's an incredible history. Lucky for you, you get to enjoy that.
Yeah, right.
So Adam, with 5 generations of history in this industry, and certainly you have been impacted, how has our weather, the COVID-19 pandemic, how has this affected your industry?
That's a great question, Sherry. So the weather, we deal with that every year. Okay. It's always an unknown. So we just kind of put that on the back burner.
Okay.
It's there. We deal with it. This spring hasn't been any cooler than usual, so that's about normal. The big impact, though, has been that we have greenhouses that are full of plants and nothing to do with them other than keep them growing good. So without the ability to sell to our consumers, our customers, there's nothing to do but just keep the plants growing healthy.
So, and let's talk about some of the impact of your industry. Sure. Maybe not everyone knows, but we're reading here that across this industry, you employ over 9,000 people in the state, and our greenhouse industry contributes over $700 million to Michigan's economy annually. So when you're not selling, that's a significant impact.
It is, and it's far beyond just those numbers that you quoted, and those are good, accurate numbers, but there's more to it than that. There's, think of the flower boxes outside the storefronts downtown, or in the neighborhoods as you're driving through Alpena there, or any of the other towns up north here. We do a lot with flowers to really make things beautiful in our area, and then add to that all of the vegetable gardens that people already plant, but even more so the vegetable gardens that folks are going to want to plant this year, just to give more of a sense of comfort when it comes to, hey, I've got tomatoes I can, or I've got some potatoes that we're going to be able to have for the winter, or onions to add to our hamburgers later on in the summer. So it's more than just the numbers, and it really is. The impact is mental. When we see a beautiful plant, it helps to calm us down. The impact is certainly physical, right? Trees and all growing plants produce oxygen. And of course, we need lots of oxygen to do what we do. And so there's a lot to it. Speaking for the industry as a whole in our state, the folks a little farther south, they're ready to start planting even now. We're a little slower up here because of the cooler weather, but downstate they're ready. It's their time, and the lost revenue could be catastrophic when it comes to if we're not able to open May 1 like we really hope we are.
Yeah. Now tell me about, I understand that as a grower, you do have a specific, I guess, window of opportunity, and hopefully that lines up with what our weather looks like, but this has certainly impacted that. Tell me about that.
So most greenhouses have about an 8-week window in which to make 80 to 90% of their revenue for the year.
Now, where are we within that window? Have we surpassed that? Is this I guess, shut down, if you will? Is it stopping that, or do we have 4 weeks more that we can play with? Where are you within that 8-week window?
Yeah, so Sherry, right now at Wilson's Garden Center, we are just at the beginning of that 8-week window. We usually think of it starting maybe the first or second week of May, and then going from there. So we're okay right now, but we still would like to be going. It's always better to be going forward than sitting still.
Right.
Folks a little further south, Grand Rapids, Detroit area, they're in the middle of that 8-week window, and they're hurting. Right. I've talked to one of our close friends that have a greenhouse just north of Grand Rapids, and they're hurting. They've got several stores that they can't open, and it's time to start. So, it's a difficult time for everyone, but especially for greenhouse growers that have full greenhouses that just need to get those plants into the hands of gardeners.
Well, we'll continue our conversation, Adam. This is so interesting, and we're all very hopeful that we do get to move forward with that May 1st opening. I know people are missing their flowers, they're missing their plants, and so we want to talk about more of that when we come back. We will take a break, and we will be right back with more insights right after this. Welcome back to Insights. We are continuing our conversation with Adam Wilson with the Wilson Garden Center in Petoskey. And Adam, before the break, you were talking about that 8-week window of time. What is your preparation time as you ramp up to getting ready for your high peak selling season?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Sherry. The biggest thing is we place orders for most of our plant material the previous year. So our orders for plant material have been in since August, September of last year.
Oh my.
So we really are planning 6 to 8 months ahead, which also means that a large portion of our business costs occur ahead of time, and then we recoup that in revenue later on. So most greenhouses, and our greenhouse is part of that, we've got a lot of money going out right now and nothing coming in. And that's really where the pinch is right now. If we were able to be selling, we would have a little bit of revenue coming in. We can make sure we're meeting payroll and any debt obligations and those kinds of things. So once we get started with production at our greenhouse, it starts March 1st. We start with planting in the greenhouse, small plants that are maybe the size of your thumb, right? They're just tiny. And then we put them in various containers, hanging baskets, small pots, large pots, and then grow them up from there. While I'm talking to you right now, my staff is working on potting our trees and shrubs and getting those ready to go out into our nursery area. And again, all of these things, they take time. Plants are not just grab it off the shelf and go. There's a lot of care and planning that goes into having a good crop each year.
How has this impacted your specific workforce at your greenhouse? Have you had to lay off staff? How have you been able to manage this when we've had to keep, obviously, the social distancing, obviously the safety precautions that are in place? So what have you had to do at your place of business?
Yeah, so we are disinfecting every morning. Everything you can imagine, we're disinfecting it. And that's, we want to make sure our staff is safe. That's paramount. And once we do open up, the safety of our customers is paramount. I mean, that's number one. In our production areas, we're very lucky to have plenty of space that we can work together, but still be that safe distance apart. And we've been very blessed not to have to lay anybody off. We've been able to keep our workforce and bring on the extra help we need as we're doing our production. We always need to add a couple, 2 or 3 extra people to get everything taken care of. And we've been able to do that. So that's been wonderful. I know that there are still an additional 2 or 3 employees I'd like to hire, but with the stay-at-home orders and people, really staying close to home, that's been difficult to find candidates who are willing to work because there's just nobody's going out and about. So, that'll be a hurdle to cross a little bit further down the road. But I think, hopefully we'll be able to open May 1, and then folks will be thinking about coming and getting their gardens ready, and somebody will be ready to come along and play in the dirt with us.
Absolutely. Now, have there been any mitigation efforts for your industry? I know that there are some small business loan packages and things of that nature that have been passed, and people hopefully are applying for those and getting assistance there. What type of financial mitigation has been allotted for your industry?
So there's been some local grants at the state level that have been just in general for small businesses, which has been a very great thing. There's also some grants at the federal level through the Small Business Administration.
And that your industry, the greenhouse industry, can apply for those grants?
Yeah, those are open to any small business, which is spectacular. I think there's a certain cap on the number of employees, but yeah, and we're able to apply for those. The only thing that's specific to our industry, the greenhouse industry, is a form of crop insurance through the USDA, and it's not exactly crop insurance. And since we're not in a position to need that funding, I don't have a lot of details about it. But that's the only one that's specific to greenhouses. Most of it, and most of what my fellow greenhouse operators would be taking part in, is going to be the financing and extra help for small businesses.
Now, in worst case scenario, and we certainly hope that this does not happen, we are certainly hopeful that we do get to move forward with a May 1 opening, as has been discussed. But if that doesn't happen, what would be your recommendations? What are you planning? What do you foresee this industry will look like if we do have to remain closed?
Yeah, so I think, if we're going really worst case scenario, I think we'll see a lot of small family owned and operated businesses like ourselves that just have to close the doors and this is it. My hope is that we don't get to that point. But, we've talked among myself. So my father and my uncle own the business, and the 3 of us have talked a long time, many hours, about what do we do if we have to be closed until June 1st. We hope it doesn't get there, but if it did, we would look at things like setting the plants out in the parking lot and letting folks know, hey, keep a 6-foot distance, but just come grab a beautiful hanging basket for your porch, because there's nothing we can do. And kind of like, a farmer has to harvest his crop to plant the next one, we have to be selling crops out of our greenhouses so that we can grow the next one on and bring it into the greenhouse.
Right,
So,
you have to have the room for the other things that are growing, so you need that
Yes.
space. Absolutely. All right, Adam, well, we are certainly hopeful that we can move forward with a May 1st opening. We all miss our flowers and our plants, and we want to bring more of them in the home, and just going to look at plants and flowers is just such a peaceful experience. So we're very hopeful. We thank you so much for joining us today, and we wish you all well.
Thank you, Sherry. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to a great spring this year.
Absolutely, absolutely. Welcome back to Insights. We're continuing our conversation about the COVID-19 impact on Michigan's economy. Joining me now to pick up our conversation is Adam Pohl, President and CEO of the Alpena Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Adam, for joining me today.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and I know you have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to get to concerning the impact of this COVID-19 pandemic, the shutdown on our local businesses here. So just give us an update on what you're hearing from our local businesses and how the Chamber plans to assist them as we get going forward, hopefully on May 1st.
Well, I'm hearing a lot of unknowns. Obviously, this is a fluid situation, and businesses, those that are, they're trying to adapt as much as possible, and they're dramatically changing the way they have to do operations. So if they're going to continue to operate, so there's a lot of questions about what can and can't be done that we get fielded at the chamber. We get a lot of requests for various assistance as far as what is available. It point them the right direction in that regard. And then, a lot of questions about what's this going to look like when we do open up and how's that going to work?
Absolutely. What do you know what the impact has been? We can just presume, obviously, this has been traumatic for our local businesses, but any specific numbers that you can share with us?
I don't have any specific numbers for the greater Alpena area. There are, statewide numbers. It's pretty bleak. Most of the, not bleak, but most of the businesses have been significantly impacted. And as I noted, they're having to change the entire way they operate, and if they can operate. So I would say, I think if I recall the statistics, over 50% of businesses have been heavily impacted in one way, shape, or form.
And do you know if many of our local businesses have taken advantage of or been able to apply for the financial assistance that has come down on the federal level?
Certainly, I know a lot of businesses have applied or at least attempted to apply to varying degrees of success. I know there has been funding regarding some of those financial programs that has been approved. How much, unfortunately, we don't have the records for just our area. I will say it's been a frustrating process for many of our local businesses, between the websites not being as user-friendly as they maybe could be, as well as just the overwhelming numbers on those websites that have caused them to lock up at times. So hopefully another round was approved federally. So hoping that if they didn't get in for the first round, the businesses can apply for that second round of funding.
Absolutely, we're hoping so too. And this whole matter has been a first for all of us in terms of social distancing, all of that. And what would be your recommendation if we ever have to travel these type of waters again? What will be your recommendations for businesses so that they can sustain something like this?
Well, I think this is definitely a first for everybody. And, obviously we haven't seen it before, and I'm certainly hope that once this is done over, we don't have to see it again. But in the meantime, obviously there's a lot of lessons being learned with a pandemic and that type of nature. Even when we do reopen, it's going to be, social distancing is going to make things unusual. You're going to have to, potentially limit the number of customers in stores, things of that nature, and that will be the reality moving forward for at least the time being. Obviously, in the future, if something like 5 years down the road, if something like this happens, I think we'll have a lot more infrastructure in place, a lot more knowledge, and I think hopefully the businesses won't have such a dramatic impact. But when you shut down a good portion of the economy all at once, there's no rules written for this type of activity, and we're all in this together, and we're all trying to go one step at a time and trying to make the most intelligent decisions.
Absolutely. As you say, unfortunately, we don't have a playbook for this one, so it's kind of learn as you go. But how do you think technology has played a role in this? Obviously, we're conducting most of our interviews through the Zoom technology, but in terms of our businesses that had to ramp up in that area, how important do you see technology going forward?
Well, obviously, technology has been dramatically helped the situation. If this would have happened, say, 25 years ago, we would have been in a much different situation. But fortunately, we do have that technology, and a lot of businesses have been rapidly adapting to the new, basically having to conduct business via Skype or Zoom or whatever. And they've been very successful and learned a lot in a short time period. And I think technology has been very helpful in the situation.
And I know we were talking off cam, you're fairly new in your role, but you really haven't had to get in there and I guess put forth some of the great ideas that you have. How has this impacted you as the new president and CEO of our local chamber?
Well, it's definitely different working from home. I'm used to going to an office every day, but fortunately, as you mentioned, the technology we have, I'm in constant communication with my staff, and they're very dedicated and great people, and they're bringing me up to speed, and I'm just trying to hit the ground running. Really, learn the various programs out there, so I can help our membership and answer any questions they may have.
And certainly at a time like this, it is so important to be engaged with your chamber as a business owner. What would you recommend for new business owners or those that may not, for whatever reason, be members? I believe this would be a time that they could definitely have used your resources, correct?
Absolutely. And on our chamber website, we have a list of resources for the COVID-19 relief. And that's open to everybody. That's just not limited to our members. And we want to make sure that it's a central area. We keep it updated. Alicia and our staff does a great job of keeping it updated every day. So we try to make sure there is tools available and it's available to everybody. In addition to that, we try to do as much outreach via emails, briefings, newsletters, that type of thing. And we try personal phone calls is another one. We want to hear from you.
Absolutely. So I know that you have the chamber breakfasts and lunches periodically. Do you look forward to starting that up again?
I do look forward to starting that up again. Needless to say, like yourself and anybody else, we don't have an exact timeline on when that's going to happen. We are looking at potential ways to do that virtually as well. And so we're throwing out a lot of options, and we're just seeing what works best for us.
Absolutely. Well, we do look forward to moving forward, hopefully on May 1st. Until that time, and your website so that people can go and get some more information, even certainly if they're looking forward to becoming a member.
Absolutely. They can find us. You can just Google search the Alpena Chamber, or I believe it's alpenachamber.com.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you, Adam. Best of luck to you, and hopefully we do get started May 1st, and you can get started in your job.
Yeah, but I'm already started. It's just a matter of not physically being there yet.
So different. Okay, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And thank you for your flexibility. I appreciate it. I know it was short notice, so I do appreciate the time to chat with you today.
No problem. You have a good day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye. Well, that wraps up Insights for this week. If you have a question, comment, or story idea for us, email us at news@wbkb11.com. I'm Sherry Stewart. Thank you again for watching.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.